These documents prove that Elvis Presley may have had a life or death reason for disappearing from public view. And they also hold information that strongly suggests he was still alive.
A lawyer has just revealed an arrest warrant for Pastor Bob Joyce because his DNA reportedly matches that of Elvis Presley. People have speculated for years, but now there's talk of solid proof. Could this mean the king faked his own death and has been living a secret life all along? Let us uncover the actual truth that will change American culture for generations. The pastor with the voice of a legend. Pastor Bob Joyce might have spent his life in peaceful anonymity if it weren't for one little detail. He looks like an older version of Elvis Presley. Seriously, the resemblance is uncanny. Add to that a voice that's eerily similar to the king's, and you've got yourself a breeding ground for conspiracy theories. Joyce's Arkansas congregation probably never imagined their humble pastor would one day be at the center of a swirling media storm. Before we dive deeper, one thing is clear. The truth behind Pastor Bob Joyce and his connection to Elvis is more astonishing than anyone ever expected, and this revelation is only the beginning. The Elvis not dead rumors have been around since the 70s, but Pastor Bob gave them a fresh spin. His singing style, his face, even his gestures, people say it's all too perfect to be just a coincidence. Let's be real for a second, though. The world has seen plenty of Elvis impersonators, but when a pastor's involved, now that's next-level bizarre. Here's where things get really nuts. Some lawyer came out saying there's evidence that ties Pastor Bob Joyce to the famous rock and roll legend, thanks to a DNA match. And apparently, this so-called match was enough for someone to issue an arrest warrant for Pastor Bob. No one knows exactly what the crime is. Maybe faking your death falls under identity fraud these days. But as you'd expect, the juicy details are super vague. No one has seen this DNA evidence, there's no official confirmation, and yet the story has taken off like wildfire. People are speculating on everything from identity theft to a grand scheme involving the estate of the rock and roll icon. But think about it for a minute. If there really were DNA proof that he is actually the legendary singer, don't you think we'd have heard about it in a more official capacity than just some random lawyer blabbing about it? Seems like someone's trying to make headlines, or maybe just sell some tabloid papers. Look, it's easy to see why this kind of story blows up. The famous singer was an icon, larger than life, and when he died, a lot of people just weren't ready to say goodbye. The idea that he's still out there, living a quieter, spiritual life as a pastor, is almost comforting. It's the kind of romantic notion that fans just can't resist. And Joyce does have an incredible voice, a voice that brings back the kind of nostalgia that can make people believe anything. But let's not get carried away. Just because someone sings like Elvis and looks a bit like him doesn't mean they're the king in hiding. There are plenty of impersonators out there, and some of them are really good. The big difference here is that Joyce isn't an impersonator. He's just a guy living his life. The whole Elvis thing, that's the internet's doing. Ever since 1977, people have claimed the king of rock is still alive. Gas stations, shopping malls, foreign countries, you name it. Someone spotted him there. It's like people need him to be alive because they weren't ready for him to be gone. Whether it was witness protection, escaping fame, or some elaborate government cover-up, theories about his death have been flying around for decades. Pastor Bob Joyce theory is just the latest iteration of that fantasy. It's got everything: a mysterious look-alike, a singing pastor, and now even DNA evidence. For many, it's easier to believe that the king faked his death and found peace as a pastor than to accept that he's really gone. It's a way of keeping a legend alive, a way of holding on to that bit of magic. Let's dive into this DNA test for a moment. If there really was a DNA match between Joyce and the famous rock and roll legend, it would be huge, like world-changing huge. But there's a reason no one's seen this alleged evidence. If such a test actually happened, it'd need to be done properly, with experts verifying the results. And wouldn't that kind of revelation involve official channels? A lone lawyer spilling the beans doesn't exactly scream credible. Just when you think things couldn't get stranger, people start talking about a DNA match, pulling Pastor Bob even deeper into this wild story. The evidence that shook a small town. Plus, think about the logistics. To compare DNA to that of the king, you'd need verified samples, a chain of custody, and all the proper forensic protocols. It's not something you can just cook up on a whim. And if it were real, you can bet it wouldn't stay a quiet little rumor for long. This would be headline news on every major network. Joyce, for his part, has mostly shrugged off the rumors. He's laughed it off, saying he's not the king, just a guy spreading his faith. His church has done their best to steer clear of the circus, focusing instead on their ministry. But of course, for the conspiracy crowd, his non-denial is just more proof. After all, if he was the famous rock star, would he really admit it? If Joyce were trying to keep his identity hidden, he's certainly done a good job of keeping his cool. His calm demeanor, his refusal to get caught up in the hype, it all feeds the conspiracy. For believers, his quietness isn't indifference. It's the king trying to protect his new private life. The supposed arrest warrant is perhaps the most ridiculous part of this whole thing. Normally, an arrest warrant means there's credible evidence that a crime's been committed. But what crime are we talking about here? Faking your death? Impersonating yourself? The whole idea of identity fraud because someone might be the famous singer is laughable at best. And without any actual proof, the arrest warrant just feels like another piece of the puzzle meant to make the story more dramatic. Maybe someone out there really wants this to be true, or maybe it's all just a publicity stunt. Whatever the case, it's pretty clear that without verified DNA evidence, this whole thing is nothing more than a rumor blown way out of proportion. Social media has taken this story and run with it. Platforms like YouTube and TikTok are filled with videos of people analyzing every move Joyce makes. How he sings, how he talks, how he looks at the camera. Everyone's suddenly an expert in rock and roll legend body language, convinced that they've cracked the code. It's not just regular fans getting in on the action either. Influencers, conspiracy theorists, and even some so-called experts are all jumping on the bandwagon. And let's be honest, for them, it's about clicks, views, and followers. The more sensational the story, the more people tune in. And if there's even a sliver of doubt, people are going to believe, because believing is way more fun than accepting reality. In the end, this story isn't really about whether or not Pastor Bob Joyce is the legendary rock and roll icon. It's about the power of belief. People want to believe that their hero didn't die, that he's still out there somewhere, living a peaceful life away from the chaos of fame. And Joyce, with his uncanny resemblance and his soothing voice, fits perfectly into that fantasy. Will we ever get definitive proof? Probably not. But for the people who believe, proof isn't really the point. It's about hope, about holding on to a piece of the past. And as long as there are people willing to believe, the legend of the king, or Pastor Bob Joyce, will live on. This whole "the king is still alive" thing isn't a new fad. It's an enduring obsession that has managed to grip multiple generations. We need to step back and ask, why does this theory, or anything that hints at the rock and roll legend still being around, have such a chokehold on fans? The famous rock star wasn't just a popular artist. He was a cultural moment. He was the face of rock and roll, the voice that defined an entire era. His charisma was unmatched, his presence electrifying, and he became larger than life. When you lose an icon of that magnitude, it leaves a void that people are desperate to fill. No one wanted to see the king end up as another tragic celebrity tale, dying too young, succumbing to fame, loneliness, and excess. It's almost easier for fans to rewrite that ending, to come up with a version where he walked away from the limelight on his own terms. It's comforting to imagine he found a way out and now spends his days peacefully, free from the pressures that destroyed so many of his contemporaries. The human brain loves a happy ending, one that feels just out of reach, but not entirely impossible. With rumors about hidden plans and secret lives swirling, let's look at the bigger ideas that keep this story alive. Why fans won't let the king rest. And then there's the witness protection angle. This theory suggests that the king was in trouble, that perhaps he knew things he shouldn't have known, or saw things he wasn't supposed to see, and the government helped him disappear. This storyline borrows elements from spy thrillers and government conspiracies, a narrative where he wasn't just a singer, but someone who had to be hidden away for his own safety. Add a bit of mystery, sprinkle in some deep state paranoia, and you've got yourself a blockbuster. The internet's rise has done wonders for keeping the conspiracy alive. Where rumors and whispered stories once slowly made their rounds, the internet has provided a megaphone for everyone and anyone who has a theory to share. Message boards, forums, social media. The information age has allowed even the most bizarre claims to flourish. And let's face it, when one person posts a video of Pastor Bob singing a gospel song and says, "This sounds exactly like the King," thousands of others are going to see it and get hooked. Before social media, conspiracy theories lived in niche communities. Today, they're out in the open, mingling with legitimate news and entertainment. It's almost impossible to tell the difference sometimes, and people aren't always great at fact-checking, especially when it comes to something they desperately want to believe. And when the platforms themselves thrive on engagement, the more controversial and exciting a story is, the more it gets amplified. Imagine for a moment you're a member of Bob Joyce's church. You come in on Sunday morning to listen to a sermon, to find a sense of community, and suddenly, your church is in the middle of an internet storm. People are showing up not to hear the word of God, but to see if they can catch a glimpse of the King slipping out of character. It's not exactly the kind of attention a pastor is looking for, and yet, Joyce and his congregation have managed to keep things relatively calm. It's almost impressive how Bob Joyce has handled the whole thing. Instead of trying to fight it or feed it, he's stayed in his lane. He hasn't tried to capitalize on the attention, nor has he hidden from it. He's just carried on with his sermons, his songs, and his community work. In a way, that's what makes the conspiracy so alluring. It's exactly what you'd expect from someone trying to live under the radar. But there's something deeper here, too. The Elvis conspiracy isn't just about Bob Joyce or DNA tests or sightings at gas stations. It's about nostalgia, a yearning for a simpler time. The famous singer represents something far beyond his music. He symbolizes a time when rock and roll was just beginning, when America seemed to be on the edge of something big and exciting. The belief that he's still alive is, in some way, a desire to keep that feeling alive, to believe that the magic of that era didn't completely fade away when he did. For many people, the idea that the King found peace and purpose as a pastor is more than just a fantasy. It's a hopeful, almost poetic ending for someone who gave so much to the world. It's the idea that maybe you can escape, maybe you can change your life entirely, and still find happiness and meaning. And whether or not it's true, the idea resonates deeply with those who dream of second chances. It's pretty interesting how some of the biggest names in music and entertainment are rumored to have faked their own deaths. Consider the rock and roll icon, for example. There's a big story that he never really passed away, but instead lived out his life away from the public eye. And he's not the only one. Tupac Shakur, Michael Jackson, and Jim Morrison have all had similar rumors about them. When these stars supposedly died, their fans were filled with grief and disbelief, finding it hard to accept their sudden absence. As the internet stirs up these stories, Pastor Bob's calm response only makes people more curious. The star legends that refuse to die. This whole notion that the King might still be out there isn't just a small talk topic. It's become a significant part of his legacy. It highlights the immense impact that some celebrities can have on society. It's less about proving whether he really dodged his own funeral, and more about understanding why people are so captivated by the idea. Many prefer to cling to the unlikely, rather than accept the loss of an icon.
We have found Elvis Presley. We tracked him down. He's living in a small cabin in Bismarck, North Dakota, via satellite hookup from station KFYR in Bismarck, North Dakota. So let's cut there now. Elvis? Elvis, are you there? It's Johnny Carson.
Yes, sir, Mr. Carson. I'm here.
Elvis, I want to thank you very much for being with us. We noticed that you've settled in Bismarck, North Dakota. Could you tell us, Elvis, what's the biggest difference between Bismarck and Memphis?
Probably the biggest difference, man. I never died in Bismarck.
Why do these stories keep popping up? When a superstar like the King leaves the scene, it leaves a gap that fans scramble to fill. Imagining that he's still somewhere, maybe strumming a guitar in a small, quiet town, helps keep his memory alive for those fans. It's as if these icons are so monumental that not even death seems to fully claim them. These tales of possible survival after death feed into our love for the dramatic and the undying. They serve as testament to the undiminished fascination we have with these figures, suggesting that their influence extends beyond their physical presence. Whether or not there's any truth to these rumors, they manage to stoke the flames of their legacies, ensuring these stars remain relevant and talked about years after their official exit. In a way, it's comforting to think that these larger-than-life personalities continue somewhere, untouched by time or tragedy. This comfort comes from a desire not to let go, to hold on to the extraordinary, and to deny the finality of death. Such stories turn these celebrities into enduring legends, forever young and forever vibrant in the minds of their admirers. It's about the stories we choose to believe and the memories we decide to preserve, turning these icons into myths that defy the ordinary limits of life. When people talk about Pastor Bob being the king, it's rarely in anger or malice. It's more often about wonder, nostalgia, and hope. It's that tinge of excitement at the idea that the king was smart enough and strong enough to find his way out of the mess of fame. For fans, there's an emotional connection that transcends logic. They see Bob Joyce and think, he could be happy, he could have found a way. And that's the kind of emotional connection that facts and evidence rarely sway. The resemblance, the voice, the gentle manner, it all fits into the perfect narrative. But at the end of the day, the rock and roll icon was, after all, human. He had flaws, struggles, and burdens, just like everyone else. And the fact that people want to envision a happier ending for him tells us more about the human condition than it does about the king himself. So, what happens next in this wild tale of the king and Pastor Bob Joyce? Honestly, it looks like more of the same. There will always be folks digging around for proof, analyzing every tiny detail, and many will keep believing. Pastor Bob will go on giving his sermons, singing his tunes, and the internet will keep on with its deep dives and guesswork. Without solid proof, and let's face it, a DNA test that everyone could see and check, this story will always be an unsolved riddle. But maybe that's the whole appeal. Maybe we're drawn to the story because it can't be proven, because it always leaves us hanging. Sometimes, wondering what if is way more thrilling than getting a straight answer. This ongoing intrigue keeps both Elvis and Pastor Bob Joyce in the spotlight in a way. It fuels discussions, articles, and endless social media posts. People gather clues, share theories, and debate passionately, each trying to convince others of their viewpoint. This perpetual state of uncertainty keeps the conversation alive, ensuring that Elvis's legend never really fades away. Why do we get so caught up in these stories? It's because they touch on something deeper, a hope or desire that some things in life remain magical, mysterious, and just out of reach. It challenges our understanding of reality and teases us with the possibility of more beyond what we see and know. For many, believing in such tales is more comforting than accepting the mundanity of the everyday. Is Pastor Bob Joyce really Elvis in hiding, or is this just another wild conspiracy? Tell us what you think, and remember to like and subscribe for more.